Great day, everybody. It is a wonderful day to begin our Story Amplifier experience. I'm Terry Lee Harrison, and this is a 3-day, 3-part series here on YouTube. I'm excited to have you. I want to welcome you if you're watching live, and I also just want to acknowledge you if you're watching the replay. Over the next 3 days, we are going to cover several of the stories that you could be including in talks. I'll talk about some of the many places that you can use these stories. And they do include, today we're going to talk about your origin story. Tomorrow we're going to dive into your faith story. You might call it a testimony. And on the third day, we're going to talk about your business story, all the stories you could tell about your business. Stories are super important. People do business with those they know, like, and trust. And your story is one of the main ways that people get to know you. And so I'm going to just invite you to grab a pen and paper. If you're watching the replay, this is an opportunity for you to be able to pause and do some of the work now. You can also come back and do it later. I invite you to take notes. This 3-part experience is powered, I say, by the BOSSchool, the Business of Speaking School. What's going to happen today, I'm going to share a little bit about me. We're going to dive into your origin story, on getting you ready to tell your origin story. And before we finish today, I am going to share a bit of information about the Business of Speaking School and invite you to consider applying for an interview. Just applying for an interview. There's nothing today that money can buy. So let's dive in. Some of you may know me well, and for some of you, you are just meeting me. And if I was to tell you a little bit about me, I always say I was not a naturally born great speaker. Some people come out speaking born out of the womb, but for me, I am someone who took speaking classes, and I am someone that had to work hard. And I remember a day back in some training that I took when some people would be shocked now. But back at that time, we had an exercise and we were drawing out a topic out of a jar, and you needed to talk for up to 2 minutes about your topic. And when I selected it, I really didn't know that much about it. So instead of making light of it and being able just to go with the flow, I stood and cried for the 2 minutes, kind of. I wasn't bawling, but are you with me? That was where I was. That is where I was in that moment. And so I do invite you to consider that our speaking can be a journey. It can be something I believe that we get better at every single time and every single day, the more that you do speak. And it is a skill that we develop, Another thing about me, I'm a pioneer in the online networking space. And I don't say that lightly. I'm not bragging. It's just a matter of fact. I had been networking online, living over in Asia, in Southeast Asia, in Singapore, and as early as late like 2018. And I can tell you that at the time pre-COVID, that everyone said, I just don't think I could network on screen. But the truth is, we found out in March of 2020 that we could, and online networking is here to stay, and I'm grateful for it. Without some of the online tech that we have, I wouldn't even be here speaking to you maybe right now, if you think about it. And so that is part of my past as well. Something that I want you to know about me is, a fun fact is, I have a Supergirl cape, and I'm not afraid to wear it. And lastly, I reside in Arlington, Texas with my husband, Terry. We serve together in ministry, and together we have 4 children and 2 adorable granddaughters. Our granddaughters are in Houston. I always say everyone's grandchild is cute, but mine really are. So let's dive in a little bit. The main theme I want to share with you is that today, if you walk away from anything when it comes to crafting your origin story, is I want you to take away this idea that your story is your superpower. Some of you may know exactly what I mean by that, and some of you may question, thinking that, man, no, my story is like an anchor that pulls me down. I hope by the time I'm done today that you're able to begin making a bit of a shift when it comes to your story. And let's talk about in light of this, where could we share all these stories we're going to be working on in the next couple days? So number one, I want you to know that you can use them everywhere. And what do I mean by that? Well, you can use them in your social media headlines. You can use them to introduce you in talks and in speeches, on webinars. If you are out in business and networking, if you condense them, and I'll show you how to do that a little bit later, you can use them in a 1-minute business commercial. You can use your stories and podcasts and live streams. You can use them in your written social media content. Pull them together in a keynote speech, and also be pulling these stories together in a book. And so when I talk to you about my story, I want you to know that I usually tell people, if without prompting, the pieces I told you, right? My speaking beginnings, my networking experience, my fun fact about me and about my family. But there's way more to my story. And I'm sure that there's way more to yours too. And so I want to empower you in like why I do this work. Why I do this work is because I was silent about a major part of my story, my origin story, for over 30 years. And as I dive in and share more with you, I think it's pertinent that you understand this little bit about me, and perhaps my story will give you more permission even to share yours, to step out and share yours even more boldly. And so when it comes to my story, a lot of it began when I was 12. I was in 6th grade. And if you think back to 6th grade, way back in the dark ages, we were in 6th grade, we're learning about the birds and the bees on a film strip. And so people that are about my age, they know film strips, and younger people might not know film strips. But we were learning about puberty, learning about these things. And it was about that time that I learned that I would not start my period like all the other girls. You see, I was born with an underdeveloped reproductive tract, and I needed to have surgery to be able to begin menstruating for the first time. And when we look at my situation, my parents did the best they could at the time, and I feel it was the right decision. But I don't remember a meeting, but there was a meeting. And we talked about that we weren't going to tell anybody. And they wanted to protect me. They didn't want everyone. They didn't want all of you, all my fellow 6th graders and everyone else knowing and making fun of me. And at the time it was right. But at 12, when you don't know any better, I took on, with information given to us at the time, that I was different than all other girls. And that how I was made was so not okay that I couldn't tell anyone. I stuffed it deep inside. I didn't know what to do with that. And some of you know exactly what I mean by that. Some of you know because you've stuffed things deep inside too. That is the crux of what began a life of shame for me. Began a life of cover up, began a life of just dealing with the hand I was dealt. No one could tell on the outside. You still can't. And I had that surgery, right? So any parts that I was missing, I have them now, right? But sometimes we stuff the things in, and then our lives go awry. In my case, I took on perfectionism as a teen, and my unlovableness began showing up, and not being good enough showed up. And even though the perfectionism would always cause me I dated the best boys, was active in youth group, we were active in church, I got the best grades. Like, my perfectionism always served me well to a point, but I wasn't letting people get close. And maybe you can relate to that. So my unlovableness caused me in my around like a 10-year period, mid-20s to mid-30s, to seek love in all the wrong places. I always say Dr. Laura had a book called The 10 Stupid Things Women Do to Mess Up Their Lives. And I always say my picture should have been on the cover. And in that time, I was involved in relationships with 3 different men. None of them were good for me. And I have been the cheater. I've been cheated on, and I've been the other woman. And I don't say any of that lightly to you. I am not proud of the things I did at that time. Sadly, it's just where I was. And I can even remember telling God, I know at one point, I know what you want me to do, but I'm going to do it my way anyway. And I don't recommend that. And even a bit later in the story, I remember actually getting up on a chair and taking down a Christ is the head of this house picture that was hanging in my home because I just knew it wasn't true. Very sad. Sad for me. Yeah. So when I tell you that I was cheated on, it wasn't just an average cheat. I was actually lured by someone from my life in the Midwest out to the West Coast. And when he did that, he was already married. He was married when he lured me from my whole life. And when I got there, then he was mean. I would say mean and angry, but that's kind of the same thing, is it? No, maybe not. Mean, angry, alcoholic, narcissistic, super controlling, verbally abusive, not necessarily physically abusive, but it was quite a situation. And I will always say that I do credit my gray hair to it's part heredity, and I say it's part that he stressed the crap out of me. May I say that he stressed the crap out of me for several years. So in my life, in those times, you might be shocked to know that in those relationships that I at first tried to have a baby. Like if you, no one ever told me I couldn't back in my early teens. And so I just assumed anything was possible. And at first that's what I was told. We can't help you. But do you know that in the middle of my mess with the cheater, that he was the cheater, that there's a lot of cheating going on, that I became pregnant. And I had my daughter, who's 32 now. And it was quite a odd situation, loving being her mom and being in the middle of that mess. Well, there came a day when I found out about all of his stuff and I left him, and man, I was mad at men. And that's what led me to become the other woman. And I always say, out of the frying pan and into the fire. And in that situation, I was never really happy there. May I speak to anybody that's the other woman today? And that's that you deserve your own man. You deserve to love yourself enough to have your own man. And that God wants more for you. I always say with God, there is peace, Peace. There's peace, and there's no peace without him. And so I was breaking off with this person when I'm wanting to get my life right with God when I found out I was pregnant. Now, I was living out in California, and I always say, I think like California people tend to let their stuff hang out a little bit more maybe than other places, or that was my personal observation. And I had met several ladies who had had babies with their married boyfriends, and I judged them very harshly. But for me, I don't think we should ever judge, because you just never know. It's not really our place to judge. You just never know. I chose to have that baby, and he's one of the greatest gifts of my life. He's 24 now. I'm so grateful. So in my life, believe it or not, I wanted to date again. And my mom had recommended to me eharmony.com. It was back when it first came out. She had offered to pay for it. She'd seen it on Oprah, and she offered to pay for it for a year. And so I did go on eharmony.com, and I credit eHarmony for bringing me my husband that I've been with 23 and a half years right now. I'm so grateful for my husband, Terry. And Terry, for many years, was the only dad that my son ever knew. How grateful, how grateful. There came a day along in my life after this, as we together raised these children, that I began working for myself part-time. Today we might call it a side hustle. I began networking. I began doing personal development and professional development. And in that time, I began working on myself, seeing coaches. And there was a coach one day who was talking to me about, what do you want to work on? And I told him, and I was saying how you walk in my house and it's all picked up, but every drawer, every closet, every cabinet. Poor Terry, he can't even park in the garage, right? Everything's a mess. And he looks at me across the table, and that coach said, tell me about your childhood. And I remember sucking in my breath and saying, oh, he thinks I was abused or something. And I said, wait, I had a loving childhood. I said, but I was sick a lot. And that day, you know what? We stuff our stuff. Have you stuffed your stuff? We stuff the things that have happened to us down, and I didn't think about it. We're carrying it with us all the time. It's affecting what we're doing. I was self-sabotaging all over the place, the choices I was making, professionally, personally, even spiritually. We stuff our stuff and it affects us. And that night I did what I couldn't do back in the dark ages, the age of the film strip, and I went online and I didn't know what to put. And I typed in absence of vagina. And I was so surprised when a bunch of information came up. And for me, if I'd been carrying a bunch of heavy baggage for 30 years and not being true about who I was, how I was made, a bunch of that like baggage exploded on the spot. I realized that I have a condition 1 in 5,000 women have, and no one's talking about it. And I didn't feel alone anymore. How would you like to go from thinking you were different than all other girls to realizing that you're not alone? Yeah. And then the more I looked, the more I realized that my children were miracles, that the women who have this condition, they also don't have a uterus and they're never going to start their period. And unfortunately, that's when they find out that they have this condition, is later in their teen years, not earlier in their teen years, when they are ready, checking out why they're not having a period. You know, I thought for 30 years I was junk and that it wasn't okay to be me, and I was a miracle the whole time and had no idea. So for me, I knew that day, 30 years in, 42 years old, I knew that I didn't want to keep quiet about what God had done for me. And I knew I felt called to tell my story. Do you feel that? You can feel that and be one of these people, one of these called people, but you can also use your story in business. So I don't want you to think I'm crazy. She's crazy. Because there are people I think that are majorly called to tell their story. But your origin story that we're going to be diving into now is super important. It's critical, really. Out in the business world, I work with people who are in business. I work with people who are in ministry, and even people who are in businessry where it's somewhat combined. And so I want to just cover some things for you. And that's, I want you to remind you that your journey doesn't define you. It's how you respond that defines you. I want to encourage you. I love this Ed Milet quote. Never be ashamed of your struggles. They are the very thing that God will use to inspire others someday. I want to talk to you briefly about shame, because interestingly enough, I went to hire a book coach not too long after my great discovery, if you will. And I said, this is my story and I want to tell my story. And this book coach says, oh, this is a book about shame. And I remember being on the phone and I was like, it is like, I had no idea. And sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees. Are you with me? Have you ever been there? And so I want to briefly just talk about shame, because what I want to impart to you when it comes to sharing your origin story, if you have any odd feelings about it, what do people think of me? I want you to realize that we are all way more alike than you can ever imagine. And while our experiences are different, that all the feelings are the same. Every human. I need you to know that. I want to give you permission today that it could be one of the most freeing things that you do in your life to begin sharing your real story. Do you have to share major details? No, not necessarily. But let's talk about shame for a minute. So shame is when you feel bad about yourself as a person. As a comparison, guilt is when you feel that you've done a bad thing. And we don't necessarily identify, oh, I'm feeling so much shame. You might recognize it as like not being good enough. You might recognize it in different ways. Not thinking that you're worthy. Yeah, but you don't necessarily say, oh, I feel so shameful today. Shame can come from three places, and you will identify it in the story I've shared with you. And what I want to just encourage you is to be thinking about, where might this be for you? And so number one, it's awkward feelings about how you're made. Now, we totally get mine, right? But it can be anything, and it's personal. What matters is that you feel bad about yourself for it, okay? So it could be that think you're too tall, or you're too short, that you're too fat, or you're too thin, that your skin is too light, or your skin is too dark. It could be that you have a scar and you hate it, that everybody can see it. It could be that you're dyslexic and you want so much for everyone not to have any idea that you can't read. And the thing is I've had people come to me for all those reasons. Yeah, I'm so tall. And when I saw that person walk in the room, I thought, how tall and beautiful is she? But that's not what she thinks. It doesn't matter what I think. It's what she thinks. And so we carry these feelings for all kinds of reasons. Are these life-altering? Well, in my case, it was pretty radically altering. Yeah. Number two, we can also feel shame from the things people have done to us. So you know what happened to me being lured from my whole life in the Midwest. I'm lucky I wasn't trafficked. Fortunate. Blessed. But I have to tell you, we can't as humans be going through this life without somebody having done something to us. We're all human and we make mistakes, and some of them are big bad mistakes. And some of the things that you've been put through are horrific. So I had no idea until I was writing my book and researching shame that a third of all people walking the planet have been abused in some way. I had no idea. And if that has happened to you, I'm here to tell you it's not okay. I am sorry for what you've been through. The third place shame comes from is the things that we have done. Yes, I've done things I'm not proud of, and I'm willing to bet you have too. And are they the same things? Most likely not. Most likely not. But these things that we have done, sometimes for those of us who know God, we may know that God forgives us, but man, it can be really hard to forgive yourself, or just to really believe that he can do the job completely. But we'll talk about this more in the faith story. But he can do the job completely if you'll let him. And we really shouldn't question him on how good a job he's doing in forgiving us, right? And so some of the things that we've done, we can identify with them and never let that go. Clip the discussions on shame. Yeah. So I want to ask you today, what stories are you telling? What stories could you tell? And so I would love to just dive into this a bit with you more. Are you ready? And so thank you for the honor of sharing my story with you. And if what I want you to know and why I wanted to get to this moment is that if the biggest lesson of my life is that the greatest gift you can give yourself is to allow others to love you for who you really are. We just never give them the chance. And I want to invite you to be able to experience that true freedom, to experience what that is like. And so I do want to make sure that I'm where I need to be. Okay. I want to ask you, what stories might you share that could create a greater impact in the world? Have you been thinking about that? You might, because you're here. And then I want to ask you if you've been holding back from sharing your story. Let's talk about some of the reasons why people hold back. So one reason why they hold back is they fear their story is not good enough. And I'm here to tell you every story matters. But I have people say, they hear some of the stories people tell, and they said, I haven't been kidnapped. And I haven't had a gun held to my head. And I said, I haven't either. Yeah, every story is different. And it's going to be things you say that somebody needs to hear. And so don't let that hold you back. Some of you do have other people involved in your story because it just can't be helped most of the time. And you are worried about revealing a sticky mess. And there's a couple things I want to say to you about that. I totally get it that when I've described some of my circumstances, I haven't given you names. I barely gave you states, right? You don't know who's involved, but I get it that you don't want you to call out a family member, your neighbor, a teacher, your babysitter, your boss. I get it. But there are ways to go around it and say it. You can change names, not reveal details, compress the story. I'm going to tell you how to do that. Gave you a sample. So I want to encourage you that you can still give the gist of what you've been through and have people totally understand what you're talking about without giving all those details. So it might not be reason for you to hold back anymore. And then lastly, you might just be waiting until you feel ready. And I'm here to tell you, in life, that feeling of being ready, it's never going to come. That feeling of being ready is never going to come. And so if you're waiting to feel ready, just get it on your calendar and go do the thing. go share your story. Go talk to a friend. I'll talk about some ways to begin sharing it in a second, but I just want to let you know that you're going to know it was the right thing to do. It's not before, it's after. When people come to you and say, I'm so glad you did that, and this is why. I could never tell that, but I'm so glad you did. And that the answers are all different because the seed you plant will be different and speak to everyone in different ways. It is such a beautiful thing. It is such a beautiful thing. So if you've been thinking about telling your story, you don't have to go on the big stage and you don't need to go on a live stream to do it. You can actually just begin by telling one trusted person. And if you're someone who has yet to work through your story, I just want to, from my heart to yours, encourage you to do that. It can be some of the most important work that you will do in your life. I say sometimes that you need to be the hero of your life before you can go out and save the world. When you're healed, you can help others in a greater way. Do you know they say every time you tell your story, it is healing to you and healing to others? And I totally believe that. So the moment you stop hiding your story is the moment that it begins to heal others. And what was once silenced will now set someone else free. So good. So if you're ready, let's dive in. So let's take a look. You may totally know your origin story, or you may just be ready to level it up at this time. I was in a discussion with some ladies recently, And I was shocked because I'm not tired of my story. I feel it's my calling, and I don't think I'll ever tire of it, although my story expands as I move through life, right? But they were talking about being sick of their story, that they don't want that to be the main story they tell anymore. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I don't know where you are with your story. You might love your story. You might need some time to work on your story. So wherever you are, let's just dive in a little bit. So the first thing that I want to chat with you about is story compression. And so story compression, the sample that I had for you was when I said that I was a cheater, I've been cheated on, and I've been the other woman, right? I took 10 years of a bunch of gunk and compressed it down so that you could get a gist of my journey. Yes. And so I want to invite you. This would be an amazing activity that you could do. And that is get a piece of paper and write my story compression and just begin brainstorming key milestones in your life. Let me give you examples of some story compression statements that others might use. And so that could be, you could say you are a single mom. You could say that you're a cancer survivor. It's what you choose to say, right? You could say, I have had a male friend say on his LinkedIn, top of his LinkedIn, that former homeless veteran. That says a lot, right? What would yours say? And so if you're at a place where you have time right now to work on this, I do invite you to pause this and begin brainstorming some key milestones in your life and then seeing what you might be able to put together. You can use these in talks. You can use these in your intros. You can even have it be up at the top of your social media. Mm-hmm. Story compression can be an amazing way to get your journey out there without spilling all the beans, if you will. Without spilling the tea. The tea is what's popular to talk about now, right? Yeah. So let's talk about some story threads and prompts. And so your story is made of different threads, and those could come from these milestones that you have brainstormed. Yes. And these I have some prompts for you, and I'm going to share them with you in the next slide. Prompts help you discover hidden treasure, things you might not have been thinking about, the gold, if you will. Your threads will build relatability, and then prompts will help you move through from general to specific. What I want you to know is that God uses every thread, and that threads lead to different types of stories. So let's just think for a minute when it comes to your origin story. Sometimes I start my story, I started at 6th grade, when the big thing happened. You could start when the major thing happened. Sometimes I take people back to earlier in my life because I'd already had surgeries like at 4 years old. I did leave out a key clue. Okay, so you want to look at what are key clues that are important, like important things for the story. So here's an example of leaving a key clue out. So, at 12, with information presented to me, I was different than all other girls. Well, a key clue was at 4, doing exploratory surgery, the doctors came out to the waiting room to share with my parents, waiting on news about me, that your daughter looks like a museum inside. It appears she was a twin and the egg didn't split. So talk about threads, importance for the story. You decide, and sometimes one might not be there. Sometimes one might be there, but that's a great example. So that worked out really great. Okay. So let's keep going. Let's keep going in this discussion. Oh no, wait. Okay. I'd love to invite you, just listen into these threads for a minute. So these are threads. And I'm going to invite you to take a picture of this if you'd like. If you could share one lesson with the world, it would be blank. I mean, I can tell you, I've thought long and hard about this. And, It is my why, it is my purpose. And in my case, it's that I want you to know that the greatest gift you can give yourself is to allow others to love you for who you really are. But what is it for you? Everyone's going to be different. And I can tell you, it's all magnificent and extraordinary. Magnificent and extraordinary. How about this one? The hardest thing I've ever done. That's a biggie. A time when failure turned into a blessing. A part of my story I used to hide but now embrace is the moment I knew my life had to change was. You see why these are so important. These are threads. These are threads. And they're really important. So I want to invite you to take some time, whether you pause now, whether you make a note and come back to this, but I want you to take these prompts, the brainstorm for your story compression, and I want you to begin journal without editing on your story. And it's like maybe an outline form, put the things together. What are the key things that need to go in, that must go in? This is a key component to being able to share your story. So I'm going to pull this up here in case you didn't get a picture. So I do invite you to get a picture. Let's talk now about story framework. And so as a business person, even in ministry, our stories need to be intentional and well-crafted. And so these days we are all used to, if you're doing any social media, you know the importance of a hook. Our hook is everything, and it's got to be there right away. It's like that with your story too. So there are different elements of your story. And so when you begin, we'll go through them now, but when you begin, you focus on the middle, and then you're going to put, it's like a sandwich, and then you put the outside. Ready? So your hook, starting with that moment your story truly began, a decision, a crisis, a revelation. I talk about when I found out I was different than all other girls. What is it in your origin story that it would be for you? Explaining the barrier, the pain that shaped your early journey. My journey was filled with bad decisions. Bad decisions. Turning away everything that was good for me in my life. Yeah. No peace. What was the solution? Where's your breakthrough? How did your path shift? For me, it was learning I'd been a miracle for 30 years and had no idea. What is it for you? And then this is one of the biggest keys. Transformation, tying it to the person that you are today and why your story matters for the people you serve. Your story is important because I'll tell you what, I open up and encourage everyone to tell their story. I have platforms for people to tell their story. I love encouraging people who would want to share their story, whether it's from a ministry standpoint or using it as a key piece to who you are in business and why people want to do business with you, right? But this transformation, for me, the tie-in, I want to encourage you all to have the tying it to a universal theme. We talked about our stories are different. Our stories are different, but the emotions are all the same. What emotion can you tie in? Hope, joy. Maybe it is talking about shame, freedom, patience, Having that is key. And I'll tell you what else is key. Being able to take your story. In the beginning, I didn't know. So in the beginning, all I had was my story. It was a little while before I got on the phone with a book coach who said, this is a book about shame. So all I had was my story. Knowing what universal theme that I wanted to focus on and talk about and teach on, and taking my story and making it much less to talk about the message, that's exactly what you want to do. For some of you who are in business, I've had people who are realtors, and in their story that they tell, super cute, it was a woman who talked about from the time she was a young child, what her and her mom did on the weekends was they went to open houses. They loved to go see the houses, and how that has played out in her life as being an expert and wanting to help people in that way. Every story matters. Your why. I don't throw people under the bus. I throw people on the bus. I have an amazing client and friend, Mary Ely, and she helps people around nutrition and health. And for many years, and she can focus on many things, but she wants to focus on helping those who have type 2 diabetes not have to go on insulin. And I knew that's what she wanted to focus on. And about 2 years into knowing her, I found out that she had been through it herself, and that was her why. But I didn't know. And I said, you need to say that because it matters. It matters, everybody. Yeah, totally matters. Yeah. And so I just want to invite you now to refine your origin story, refine that sandwich, the problem and the solution, and then rework your hook and how you're going to end it. What will you teach on? Do you know that to this day, the things that I began working on with my signature story back in 2015, 2014, some of the phrases that I use, the sound bites that I use, things that went in my book, things that went in my signature speech, they're the same things today. Some things you'll have with you forever. Some things you will continue to evolve. But all this work is important. Whether you are a business person wanting to do a story compression about your story so that people know you and know you, like you, trust you, but think that you are their person, know that you are just ahead of them enough on the journey to be able to help them, or whether you feel called to tell this story. So I invite you to take the time. Maybe it's now, and maybe it's later. So if we have homework in this series, it would be to go ahead and work on your origin story. We're going to come back tomorrow at the same time. And I do invite you back if working on your faith story, if leveling up your faith story is important to you. Would love to talk to you about that. We can have multiple signature speeches. Some will be more faithed up than others. We're going to talk all about that. Yep, it's going to be a powerful session. Followed by the next day, the business stories you could tell. So as promised, thanks for being here. And I'd love to share with you, this is the type of work that we do inside the Business of Speaking School. And I'm just going to share what goes on inside of the BOSSchool and invite you an invitation, if it's of interest to you, to go ahead and apply to interview. It doesn't obligate you, but I'm going to tell you all about it now if you're ready. So here we go. So the BOSSchool is not just another course. I've attended courses and I have taught courses, frankly, but it's a done with you speaker business accelerator. We are going to craft your speech. You're going to build your offer. This is an offer. You're going to build your offer, grow your audience, book 10 plus speaking engagements, and launch a revenue producing asset, all with support, accountability, and a clear path forward. I want you to imagine just for a minute that your inbox has speaking invitations, podcasts, guest spots, that you're launching a webinar or a challenge and having new clients say yes because your message connects. You're not just speaking, but speaking to sell and knowing exactly how to turn your words into revenue. Imagine having your content, your lead magnet, and your speech and your offer all done. For some of you, that's huge. Ready to run your speaker funnel on autopilot. Imagine having a community that celebrates your wins and walks with you on the hard days. That's what happens in the Boss School. This is ideal for you if you have a message and don't know where to start or how to monetize. If you're tired of piecing things together alone, sometimes your business might feel like Frankenstein, pieces here and there. Imagine you've spoken but haven't been consistent about getting leads or sales. It's ideal for you if you need a signature speech, a speaking offer, and a lead magnet that converts. It's for you if you want to speak more but don't know how to find and book opportunities. It's for you if you want to grow your business inside a faith-friendly, value-aligned space. So what makes the Boss School unique? So you don't just get curriculum, you get two powerhouse coaches. I am there to support on the storytelling and the stage confidence and the monetizing your message side, on the crafting your speech, on the booking speeches side, speaking and scaling. Carolyn Bob Green is my partner in the Boss School. And I'm going to tell you, Boss School is unique. I believe it's one of the most unique spaces out in the speaking training world because I have taught on my own. And it's one thing to tell you, y'all need to go get your email list going. Y'all need a lead magnet. Y'all need a funnel. And it's different than beside having somebody who is someone who is your tech, systems, and behind the scenes strategy person, everything you need to scale, and to have that person there to walk you side by side, step by step for a done with you experience. You will leave the Boss School with your things completed. It's unique. Together, we help you bridge the heart and the how, clarifying your message and implementation. You're going to actually launch your business. What's inside? Weekly live classes. We meet on Thursdays, or we have morning sessions or evening sessions. We are beginning a new morning session to launch mid-April. Daily WhatsApp support. There's community and accountability waiting for you. Weekly co-working time. If it's meaningful for you to know, I'm going to log in at a certain time and we're going to work together, that we have that for you. And regular accelerators and experiences like this one. This is day one of this experience. Monthly networking nights and access to our Boss Access community where we come together with others outside of Boss School. I call it Boss School Light, but it's a wonderful community of people, just people who may have already done Boss School or just aren't ready yet. There's 4 phases, 4 modules. Carolyn teaches passion and purpose, where you work on your message and clarity, your email list, and your launch plan. I will guide you through Speaker Accelerator, where we craft your speech, we work on your story, you create your offer, you give your talk. Carolyn then guides you through your business builder. It's a layering process, and where you're going to work on your lead magnet, your speaker funnel, you're going to launch your course. And then I take you through Speak and Scale, where you learn to sell from stage, get your speaker sheet done, where you find booking, speaking gigs, and where you will go work to book 10 plus speeches. This is outcome based, and Boss School ends with a capstone where you present, this is my business that I created, and show us all the steps that you have created so that you're ready to launch, ready to rock and roll and make income, not just impact. There's an investment for this 15-week program. And I want you to think about it. You get the trainings, the coaching, the support, the systems help, speaking opportunities. And for this 15-week program is only $997 or 4 monthly payments of $297. It includes that Boss Access membership and also the co-working support. What I want you to know is if the only reason why you wouldn't apply today is that you need a different payment plan, I want you to still apply. We would love to chat with you. We would love to chat with you. So as a fast action bonus, no matter what day or time you're watching this, if you apply within the next hour, just let me know. Just saw your video, and you will get an extra one-on-one private coaching session, which is a $500 value. And so how do you apply? You go to thebossschool.com, BOSSchool.com. There's an application there that will lead you to an opportunity to interview. We would love to meet you, learn about what you're up to, what you would like to accomplish, get to know you better, and see if we're all a good fit for each other. So I want you just to think about, if all BOSSchool did was help you craft your signature speech and get it out, finally get booked for real, and give you a strategy that turns your story into income, would it be worth it? I think we know that it would. So we get Q&A questions, and I want to share a few of them with you. You might say, I'm just getting started. So if you are, even better, we meet you right where you are with training and support. Some of you might say, I have a brick and mortar business. What if, can you help me? And what we want you to know is that speaking builds credibility and visibility online and locally. What if you don't have a team? Well, you don't need one. We're going to show you the systems and the tools to stay simple and smart. And lastly, what if you're already stretched for time? That's why we offer flexible replay access, co-working time, and a community that helps you stay focused. And we do offer a 30-day no questions asked refund policy. We invite you to try BOSSchool risk-free. So today, this is your open door. If you've been praying for clarity and for momentum, for something to say yes to, this is it. I want to invite you to apply to interview for the BOSSchool here, thebossschool.com, BOSSchool.com. I invite you to come together to build your business of speaking. Thanks for being here, everyone. I look forward to seeing you for part two. Part two, where we're going to work on our faith story. We will go live on Thursday, March 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And these replays will be up for 7 days for you to have access to be able to work on all your stories. I believe that every story matters, that you are not here by accident. I'm excited to come alongside you and helping you use your stories strategically, not only to help people, but to build your credibility and visibility and to grow your business. Wishing you a blessed day, and I will see you on screen soon.